Hi, church. What do you think it was like growing up with Jesus as an older brother? On the one hand, it had to be pretty great, right? All that love your neighbor, first shall be last, last shall be first stuff. I'm sure he never took more than his share, and he probably always gave his little brothers first dibs on seconds. Probably not a lot of teasing or name calling either. On the other hand, the comparison part might have been a little rough. Why can't you be more like your brother? In other words, why can't you be perfect? Ouch. If you're familiar with the gospel stories, Jesus's brothers weren't entirely on board with the way he went about his ministry. In John's gospel, John tells us when the festival of tabernacles was near, Jesus's brothers said to him, "Leave Galilee and go to Judea, so that your disciples there may see the works you do. No one who wants to become a public figure acts in secret. Since you are doing these things, show yourself to the world." In essence, they were saying, if you really are who you say you are, Jesus, why not do it on the main stage in Jerusalem? John then adds the explanatory note, for even his own brothers did not believe him. And disbelief is one thing. In Mark 3, we're told that such a crowd had gathered so that he and his disciples were not even able to eat. When his family heard about this, they went to take charge of him, for they said he is out of his mind. To his brothers, Jesus' crucifixion was tragic and misguided, but probably not all that surprising. His resurrection, that's another story. In 1 Corinthians 15, the Apostle Paul talks about Christ's post-resurrection appearances, saying he appeared to Cephas, that is Peter, and then to the 12. After that, he appeared to more than 500 of the brothers and sisters at the same time, most of whom are still living, though some have fallen asleep. Then he appeared to James, then to all the apostles. It's such a slight comment that it's easy to miss. Just 5 words. Then he appeared to James. We don't know where it happened or what was said, but we do know that that appearance changed everything for James. He went from thinking his brother died a misguided fool to realizing his brother had been raised from the dead, and James became a leader in the emerging kingdom movement his brother began. More than that, he came to understand his brother was more than his brother. In the lone source we have attributed to James, he begins James, a servant of God and the Lord Jesus Christ. In other words, James was putting his earthly brother on the same plane as our all-sovereign, all-creating God. Now, Paul refers to James occasionally in his letters, and in Acts, we find him delivering the final words at the Jerusalem Council in Acts 15. My favorite story comes in the writings of the early church. One 2nd century author spoke of James that he was frequently found upon his knees, begging forgiveness for the people so that his knees became hard like those of a camel. For this, James was called Old Camel Knees. That's transformation. And we don't all get to experience a post-resurrection appearance like James or the apostles. We won't all get silly or weird nicknames as a result of our commitment to him. Sometimes the change is slower and not quite the dramatic before and after as we see in James or even the Apostle Paul. But there is a change nonetheless. I want to encourage you this week just to take some time to think back to that day that Jesus appeared in your life. Maybe you didn't see him the way that James did, but maybe it came through a message. Maybe it came through the words of a friend, but your eyes were open and you saw Jesus. Think back to that and give thanks to God for the change that he's brought about since that day. And then ask him to give you an eager anticipation for the transformation still to come. Have a blessed week, church.